Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to show how you can make floor to ceiling shelves. Now what's so great about this is that it is so easily customizable in size and style to really make it your own. You can keep it relatively small or go all out, item count permitting of course. The primary item in all of this is the industrial wall shelf. For the bottom here, I have the Dragon Tide sideboard in this build. Both of these in the autumn color so that they match. But like I said, you can really customize this. In another iteration of this, I went with the Homestead large dresser in the classic color scheme. So just be sure to plan ahead, get all the pieces modified in the color you want before you build. As you can imagine, the process can be quite monotonous, so I do not intend to show the entire build. Instead, I'm going to show you the basics of all this and how you can put it all together, so you can use what you learn to make something that fits whatever space you are working with and the style you are going for. Fair warning before we get started, this is a PC build. You won't be able to recreate this on Switch. Also, I will assume you are at least familiar with some of the techniques I'll be using. If you are not familiar with the techniques I'm using, I suggest you go look at my techniques video that I will link to in the description. Now to get started, I'm just going to put together 6 walls. This will be the back where these shells will go. I'm just going to put that aside for now. Now I'll start by making a jig. And this consists of just 3 wall pieces on the ground. Make sure they're connected together, so when you left click to grab, they all come with you. And there will be 2 shelves, one on each end, and there will be a pillar on both. This one pillar on the far right square in the middle, this one in the very center, and this one will have a shelf there, and this one will have a shelf but not yet. I'm going to take a shelf over to here and another shelf to this wall, and I'm using the group select technique where you aim at the bowl, alt left click to pick up the whole stack. And because I aimed at the bowl when I did that, I can place this shelf as if it's the bowl, which allows me to place it on the shelf. And then I'm going to place this pillar here. Now it's important that this shelf and this shelf are the same location on the pillar, and they do appear to be, and in the same direction. This one I'm going to bring up to the very top right corner, keep it on the grid, so as high as up it can go and as far right as it can go, and then bring it back like that. And again, keep this on the grid at all times, because you'll have to replace this multiple times, and it's easier to do it if you keep it on the grid and remember the exact placement of it. That's why I chose top right, far right, because it's just easy to remember the placement of it. This one I'm going to move, but I'm not going to place it. Instead, I'm going to have a shelf for my inventory I'm going to place, but not yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to free place the alignment. So the top shelf of the 2 shelf stack is making a perfect right angle with the shelf on its side. That looks pretty good right about there. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to do without moving my camera as much as possible. I'm going to right click, which will cancel the grab of this shelf, and then I'm going to pull out a new shelf from my inventory. I'm going to make sure the grid is off, so if I turn grid on, it shifts. If I turn the grid off, it moves back to where my shelf wants to be. And then I left click to place it. So very important that you do it exactly like that. And the reason why I do that is because now, if you see, if I move this pillar and bring it here, this is perfectly lined up to give me that right angle that I'm looking for. So this is the jig. You are not actually going to be using this at all except as an example or diagram to help remember where things are supposed to be placed as you're building. It's this that I'll be building on. And for this next step, I'm going to be using the cancellation placement technique. So I'm going to grab this pillar and I'm going to put it here, but I'm not going to place it. I'm going to cancel the placement. I have my Embra plush in my number 1 key. So as you follow along, when you see me cancel the placement of something, you'll know it because I'm pulling up my Embra plush. So with that item canceled there, I'm going to bring in another shelf with the bowl on top. Alt left click the bowl to get the whole stack. And then I'm going to place this shelf on top of this one and make sure that it's in the exact same position on this shelf as this one is on this shelf. And they do look to be exact. So now I can grab the base of the jig. Now you could grab like the pillar and place the pillar, or the shelf, place the shelf. You don't want to do that though, because you'll have to replace things and it gets complicated. Grab the base of the jig and place the jig itself. This will snap the pillar back to where you want the pillar to be, as well as connect the shelf that you just placed to the shelf that was on the pillar. This gives you part of the pillar that'll be used for the bookshelf. So you have this industrial wall shelf connected to this one, which connects to the wall. Now you just repeat that process however many times you want or need for what you're building. Bring this down. I'm just placing this so I can put a new shelf here. Placing the new shelf. And now I'm going to put this back to where it was. And because I kept the grid on and remembered that I went top right, I know I can just easily put it right back to where it was. And you can confirm that it is by just checking and see that you still have your perfect right angle. So then you can just do that same process over and over again until you get as many as you need. So once you have as many as you need, then you just put them all in the back plane here and stack them up in a row. If you're going 4 high, you'll need another one at the very top here. Then you can just finish off the spine by adding in another board there. Now, one thing about this is you'll see you can't get this exactly where you want it to go. Even if you could place it without the clipping, you can't quite get it on the grid. And you want to stay on the grid as much as possible because it keeps things uniformed, or if you're free placing, things can get skewed. So what you're going to have to do here is use the cancellation placement method again. And to do that, I want to point out one thing first. When you are moving something on the ground on the grid, one movement is half a square. But when you're doing it on this wall here, one movement is a full square. So we wanted this to go, if you move it over 1 full square, it's still not enough. If you move it over 2 full squares, it's too much. So we want to move this over 1.5 squares. So we'll do that by grabbing the base of the backboard and go 1, 2, 3. That's 1.5 squares. Cancel the placement by pulling out the Embra plush. And then I'm going to place this on the board again, exactly where it just was. And you can do this all at once. You don't have to do it one at a time. So just stack all these up to the top. and when I grab the board and place it, they will all snap into position. And this is the center spine for the shelves. So the rest of this, you can just free place these shelves if you want to. Keep in mind maybe where you're going to go on the base. Maybe you want to lift up higher as accordingly, that sort of thing. Also keep in mind there will be some gaps here. You can get rid of them by doing more of the cancellation placement method. For example, I can grab the base here and move it over 1, which is half a square, and then cancel the placement. And then I could replace this and replace this. These will both shift over when I place this to close that gap there. And you just repeat that all around it. Now there's something else to consider. This is optional. It makes it a bit more complicated, but I like the outcome better. As you place these, you'll notice that there's a lot of these metal bars, and I personally don't like the look of these metal bars. So if you really wanted to make it look more clean when you're placing all these things, you can use the cancellation placement method to go backwards. So when you go back 2 spaces or 1 full square, and then when you replace all these, they will sink into the board. It looks a lot cleaner, in my opinion, than having all of those bars showing. I also like the shorter shelf length. If you want to do the same with the pillar, you can. If you want to keep it more uniform, you can sink the pillar into the back. If you're going to be doing that sort of thing, it can complicate things. I'll show you what I mean. I should start with sinking the center one. Go back 2, cancel the placement, and then sink this, and then place this. So that's sunk 2 spaces in to make it more in line with this board here. I'll do the same with this one. Cancel the placement, place, grab and place, and that will sink. So there, so you see how it's more uniform. So to get these into place then, you would have to go back 2 to account for the sinking in, and you have to go 1, 2, 3 to account for the shift. That's where it gets complicated. It's accounting for the sink and the shift simultaneously. So putting it there and there. Just want to grab and place from the base. Those will sink and shift into position. So I sunk the entire center spine here, which means I'll need to shift and sink all of these as well. So I'm going to pick these up, and that's where it's going to start. I want it to shift over 1 and sink back into the board twice. So I'm going to find a good starting spot on the grid here, just place it, and then I'm going to grab it, and I'm going to go back 2 for the sink, and right 1 for the shift, and cancel the placement with my plush. And then I will just place all of these all over again. And these will all then sink and shift to get a more uniform, neat looking shelf. Now at this point you want to start thinking about how you want to add ends to this, or no ends at all. I had this going into this pillar here, so I didn't even need to put a little cap on here. On this end I did a double shelf cap. You don't need to do 2, but you can if you want to. I liked the way it looked, and I think it made it look cleaner that way. You probably can make do with just 1 though. Now, a problem I ran into intentionally, so that way I could show you what to do about it, is that there's no more room here. I want this to go here, and so I can't just add another board, because then it'll like cover up this entryway here. So I'm going to show you what you can do with less, so you don't end up blocking yourself in, or covering up something you don't want to cover up. So what you can do about that is more just shift placement with the cancellation method. That's about as far as it can go on its own. So I'm going to use the cancellation method to shift this over 2 spaces, and I'm going to shift it back 2 as well to account for the sinking into the backboard. Cancel the placement with the chop plush, and then I'm going to place this as far as it will go on its own, and that will then allow me to place the base, snap it to where it can go to better line it up the edge there. And I would just do that all the way up. It's going to be hard because now there's shelves in the way all the way up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab these and cancel the placement of them just somewhere else on here. You can just throw them on the back even. Not really, doesn't really matter where. You're just going to grab them and cancel the placement of them somewhere else. As you can see, cancel the placement. My Ember Chop plush pops out. Now I can grab this and move it over 2 and move it back 2 to account for this inking into the back plane. Cancel the placement, and now I will add 2 more of these up here, like that. Grab the base and place. Everything snaps into position to where it should go. And once you have your completed bookshelf, which I don't have really here, but I don't want to do both sides to this, just to show you. You want to bring it into the room. You'll see you might not be able to place it in the room anywhere. That's kind of to be expected. So what you are going to have to do is place it outside as close as to where you want it to go as possible. And then you're going to grab the boards that are connected to the baseboard. This is the main board right here. This one that I'm grabbing all the time is the main baseboard. So I'm going to grab this one and cancel it out of the way. And I'm going to grab this other one and cancel this one out of the way as well. So now I'm just placing this one board. All those other ones are there, still coming with me, but they are outside the building, so they're not clipping into anything. And from here, I'm just going to place this as close as possible to where I want it to go, which is about right there. Place it, and everything snaps back with it. And the next thing there is to do is to hide this in the wall, so you're not looking at these wooden walls. And to do that, I'm going to just kind of look at the ground here and kind of guess how many squares into the wall I need to move this to get it into the wall, which is probably about 2 to 3 full squares. So I'm going to take this back outside now, and I'm going to cancel the placement of it anywhere. And then I'm going to pull out a building block and come to the back and place it as close as I can. That's actually placed on the ground. And I'm going to Alt left click from this one I just placed, which highlights the entire stack. Okay, highlights everything. Now this was not placed. This was canceled. And that's important. So when I Alt left click and grab it from the starting point, Alt left click, and I'm going to move this whole thing 1, 2, 3, so 4 spaces. Let's do 3 spaces. And when I place this block, It moves the block and it moves the wall, but the wall technically is still inside the house because I didn't place it outside. I canceled the placement outside. So when that snaps back, it snaps back inside and then moves in to the wall further. Now it didn't go far enough into the wall, so what I'm going to do is take it back outside and do that again. Against the block, cancel the placement, put the block up against it, place the block, Alt select everything, and do it. I do this repeatedly so I can grab it from the starting point. I don't want the block to move when I grab it. It just makes it easier to remember where I'm moving things. So this is the starting point, and I'm going to Alt left click the block, and I'm going to move it back one more space and place the block. That shelf construct snaps back inside and shifts further into the wall. Like that. Doing this with the Dragon Tide dresser here, and I can shift this into place like that. And there's the bookshelf. Real quick, if you ever needed to get this out of the wall, there's a couple things you could do to accomplish that. One, if you have a wallpaper, take off the wallpaper. Then you should be able to click through the wall or select the wall through the wall, as long as you don't have a wallpaper there. If it's too far in, the other thing you can do is place a block close by and then Alt left click from the block you placed to get the whole stack together. You can find me on the tour board all month long. I'll have my spooky mansion plot open. You'll be able to see in person the bookshelves that I made, including what's behind my secret hidden door. Come check it out. If you see anything here that you want to know how it was made, leave a comment below to let me know, and maybe I'll make a video on it. As always, I hope you found this video helpful. Thanks for watching.